Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal EMac coming to you with Terry McBride, TMcB, for those of you that are not used to his moniker outside of the Awesemo world. Terry McBride, but TMcB. For a long time, we thought it was TMcB, but now we know we were set straight. TMcB, welcome. You get week 2 here. I heard part of your podcast last night with Jason Floyd. I think you guys did a great job. How is it now? You've got a full week under your belt of podcasts here, Terry.
Yeah, well, getting into the podcast game, hopefully everybody out there is not sick of hearing my stupid voice already, but you'll be hearing it a lot more. So hopefully I've done well for you so far, and really starting to get into the feel of it and know where I need my information. So I'm hoping to have some data at my fingertips a little bit better as we go forward. Maybe not starting today, but as we get into things, with all the chaos, it was a little bit much today. Cleaning up some lineups that were in the main slate, and then getting everything geared up for tomorrow. But we're gonna go through it, and I think we've got some good ideas about what tomorrow's going to shape up like now.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of moving parts here. We just got a DK slate dropped here that's going to go from 605 to 640, so we'll talk about that. That's a 4-game slate. FanDuel is starting their main slate at 640 with the two 640 games, which are the Cubs, Reds, Braves, and Rays. DraftKings is starting their main slate at 7:05, and then we'll have to see if Fantasy Draft, SuperDraft, and Yahoo come live while we are recording this on Monday night. We had a little bit of weather out there. We had the Cincinnati game start in went to a delay after Wade Miley pitched a dozen or so pitches. He came back in after the delay, promptly gave up 6 earned runs. ruining my stat of saying in these last 49 games, Wade Miley has allowed more than 4 runs only twice. Well, guess what? It's 3 in his last 50, and you can bet I'm going to quote that next time because that's still only 6% of his starts over the last 2 seasons. But in any event, Rats, that one got burned for me. And then we're waiting to see what happens with Pittsburgh. Their game is in a delay now. It wasn't expected to be too long. However, Stephen Brault has gone 2 innings. Adrian Hauser has gone 1. It's been long enough. I don't think either will come back. I was trying to watch. I didn't have the TV on. I was trying to watch just via the ESPN box scores, and I think they went into a delay for a short one. I believe Brault came back, pitched a half inning, or pitched his portion of the inning, and then they went back into a delay. But we'll have to see what happens with those guys. And then we had Cleveland and the Chicago White Sox were postponed because of weather, so they're going to have a doubleheader. It looks like the first one starting at 3:40, and it looks like the second one is that already scheduled 6:40 start. Now, is it 6:40? This is where there's some moving parts here, so we'll want to make sure it's on our main slates, etc. It should be. We've just seen some wonky things previously, especially on DraftKings, where when they've had a doubleheader and they've changed the start time, even if it was still, a couple times they've done it, if it was still even within the main slate, they took it out and they put the big red banner up and said, such and such game isn't counting anymore because it's a doubleheader or something like that. Let's just pay attention. We know we've had rocky starts all around for all of us, for the players, for DFS operators, for me trying to run tech. We're all getting our sea legs back, so let's just check that out. But we'll get into the games here. I do want to say we have a promo code that's going to run out here in another 5 or 6 days, but this is promo code RESTART in honor of the sports coming back. This is the best offer we have here at Awesemo. You get 1 full month of Awesemo for half price. So it works out to $45 if you use the promo code RESTART, and you get everything. You get the projections for all the sports, the ownership projections, the player projections, the Slack chat, the top stacks tool, everything. NBA, MLB, PGA. You get League of Legends. You get Call of Duty. You get CG? I never know what Counter-Strike. I'm missing one here. KBO projections still, because there are some games for that. You get literally everything. So NASCAR. Check that out. It's the best deal we've got, but it's well worth it. So that's $150 a day. Test us out, see if you like us, and I guarantee you will. So definitely check that out. Terry, let's jump right into our games here. It feels like we've been here before, but let's just keep going. We've got a little deja vu. We've got 2-6-05 games here. Tanner Roark and Austin Voth are going in Washington. This game should be a warm one. There's scattered showers in the DC area, so we'll have to see what happens here because, you know, it's the Nationals. I don't think it'll be a problem with such an abbreviated season and no real off days. They're not really going to muck around. Plus, with Strasburg getting scratched the other day and them already down players, it's not like they have much better than Austin Voth anyway. If you're going to target anybody on this slate for or against pitching, one of the guys I want to go against is Tanner Roark, and then I'm going to turn this over to Terry. One of the guys I like as a pitcher is Tyler Mahle. I'm on the fence here for Yonny Chirinos. Those are 3 of our 8 pitchers there. What do you want to talk about for our 4-gamer, Terry?
Yeah, so I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I think Roark especially makes a just really solid target. He's never been a guy that's going to blow anybody away and, you know, soft tosser like that. I think this Nats, even as a diminished lineup that we're seeing from the Nats after coming off that title, you know, losing Rendon, going out to California, I think there's enough here in this lineup that they could get to a guy like that. So I do like that call. Just taking a look through the other starters, J-Happ is, you know, on my beloved Yankees, but he's a problem. He's never a guy you want in DFS. He could put up a good start here and there for you, but he's just not somebody I'm going to. Similar story with Arrieta. Mahle is a guy who I think has a decent strikeout profile against this Cubs lineup. You know, we see a lot of guys in the mid to high 20s in that lineup. There's a few guys who manage to strike out very well. So there's going to be a couple holes in his ability to just breeze right on through it. But I think he's a guy that we could see strike out more than and a few more guys than people are expecting and put up a better point total than some DFS owners out there might be expecting. So he's a guy I'm going to have in some lineups if I'm playing that slate. And then another guy that I'm sorry, I'm looking at a different game.
Oh yeah, no worries on that one. So that's kind of hitting the 4-gamer there for DK. FanDuel they're starting their main slate here at 640. So among these guys that we like, Tyler Mahle is going to be the one, and then Yonny Chirinos is kind of interesting. I like him at 7,400 there on FanDuel. We don't have to worry about him on the main slate for DK, but I think he's okay as your secondary pitcher. We're seeing some fireworks tonight between Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Now that has nothing to do with what's going to happen on Tuesday night's game, but it's just a reminder that even with Tropicana Field, runs can be scored anywhere. That game right now, there's 18 runs. Tampa Bay has run out 13 runs through 7 innings, and they have, let me see, how do I look? Zunino, Wendell each have a home run, and Renfroe has 2. On the other side, Matt Adams has 1, and Dansby Swanson has 1. So, hey,
Dansby,
if there's nobody in the stands, and there's usually not in Tampa Bay, does it turn into a home run park? I don't know. But that was a little bit unexpected there. But this is coming off Tuki Toussaint and Fultonevich gave up 1 and 3 respectively, and Tyler Glasnow gave up 1, but he still had 9 strikeouts in 4 innings. So just throwing that out there so that you can get some eye-popping numbers on all sides, because this is baseball. This
Absolutely.
Is baseball. Anything else you want to hit on these kind of earlier games that are patchworked between the two sides?
Yeah, so I was going to go into it a second ago, and then I stopped myself because the timing of these games is now all in flux, and it threw me off. So 640 game, I do like Kyle Wright on the Braves side. You know, he's a former top prospect. Kid's gotten a chance or two, you know, very limited innings so far in the majors, so we haven't really seen what he really is yet. Pretty good profile from the strikeout perspective, good career in the minors. So he's another guy that falls into, you know, mid-4s projection from Steamer, but lots of like in the kid's upside. If he can manage to not walk too many Rays tomorrow, I could see him putting up a decent game for us. And there's certainly a lot of strikeouts in that Tampa lineup. So I think he could put up a score that people aren't necessarily expecting. Might be a guy to keep an eye on tomorrow at a pretty good price.
All right, that sounds good. Now we're cruising in on the 7:05 game. So we have a very robust slate here. You've got DraftKings, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 games, and then FanDuel, of course, has a 12-gamer because they've got those other 2. But we're looking at the Brewers and the Pittsburgh Pirates now. So, again, that game in a rain delay, not going to impact these pitchers that are listed as the starters unless somehow they end up pitching tonight when that game comes back, which I doubt. We've got Josh Lindbloom, who is very intriguing on DraftKings at 5,100. Discounted pitcher helps us get a lot of bats, and we've seen at this point, is there really anyone to pay for? Hard to tell because we've seen, Verlander got hurt, Scherzer, a little rain delay. We've seen the unknowns, Kyle Hendricks. Hey, complete game. Who anything goes into 2020. Just literally anything goes. But Josh Lindblom at 5,100 is interesting. Derek Holland, the Pittsburgh's really missing Chris Archer and Jamison Taillon. So they've got Derek Holland and Steven Brault at the back end of their rotation. Those guys I'm not even sure really belong in the league, or they should be relievers. This is a good place to start. A leisurely pace. It looks like it's going to be clear in the mid-80s with a light breeze going out to left, Terry. That's some nice baseball weather. What do you like in this pleasant environment that we have?
It does just sound downright pleasant after the chaos of today. So let's hope that there's no craziness going on in that one, or any positive tests that scrap the game or anything, and we can just get a nice easy move into this game. I like Lindblom a lot. He's a guy went out of the league for a couple of years and kind of found himself in the KBO over in our favorite Korean league. So he had 2 outstanding years over there. He's back in the majors now. And he's a guy getting actually surprised me when I put it into my model. But right now, he is my top projected pitcher on FanDuel tomorrow. So it seems like he's a guy I'm going to be jamming in quite a bit of. I think there's enough to like in this spot that we can get a good score out of him as well. So it just looks like there's some very quality, inexpensive pitching tomorrow. And like you mentioned, I don't know where we're going to spend that money. It's in baseball. Fortunately, we don't have to care about spending all of our salary cap. We just want to get to 2 good lineups. 2 good stacks rather, and a good pitcher to create a good lineup. So I'm not too concerned with where I'm going to spend things, but it's nice to know that I've got the money to spend and I can just look to whatever bats I want tomorrow with this slate.
Yeah, and this is going to be one here where Derek Holland, just not somebody I'm particularly interested in. Milwaukee has the ability to go incredibly right-handed. They've got a couple switch hitters in there. Justin Smoke with his power. Christian Yelich, former MVP. He's not going to be worried about a lefty-lefty matchup there with Derek Holland. So these are Holland would be a guy I'd like to target against. I don't know how forcefully I want that to be, but they've got a lot of power with Jed Jerko, even Manny Pena down at the bottom, Kesnahira up at the top. Ryan Braun batting cleanup once again. Yes, he's not Ryan Braun still, but he's still pretty darn good when he's going against lefties. None of these guys are going to break the bank on DK outside of Yelich, who is 5,900. He's getting the Mike Trout treatment, but everybody else is 4,000. Half of them are in the mid threes, so we're okay on that one. If I was taking one home run guy against Lindblom, I'd probably take Colin Moran for 3K on DraftKings. You do get first base, third base eligibility. If you wanted to splurge, 4,900 there for Josh Bell. Anything you want to note with Derek Holland?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Holland's a guy, we know who he is. Nobody's scared of Derek Holland right now. He's a guy who's kicked around for quite a while. So I think that Brewers lineup is probably going to be pretty chalky. I think people are going to be going to that one knowing that they've got a it's unfair to call him a gas can, but a guy who gives up, 4.53 career FIP. Is a pitcher that's going to give up runs. It's a pitcher that you can stack against. So you hit a lot of the guys in that lineup that I like. I think Avi Garcia is worth a mention there. He's had better years than he did in recent years against left-handed pitching, but he's certainly a guy who can still turn on the ball against a weak lefty like this. So there's a lot to like in that Brewers lineup, and I think there's a lot of spots that you can kind of mix and match and differentiate things with the way that that lineup just kind of comes together. So they're definitely going to be a team I'm going to be focused on a little bit tomorrow.
Yeah, and its last 800 batters faced from the right-hand side of the plate, Holland is allowing a 1.85 home run per 9 rate. So that's second highest on the slate. Adam Plutko is number 2, and Dario Agrisol, we'll talk about him. Oops, I guess that's who Derek Holland is going to be pitching for. Sorry. So we'll have to, maybe Holland will, I don't think he'll be an opener. He's been he's bounced between the bullpen and not. So anyway.
Did Agrisol just throw you? He's on Detroit now.
Oh, wait, Agrisol is?
Yeah, he's the starter for Detroit.
Oh, thank you.
What I have.
Good God. Well, this is where I should probably
just because I was just wrestling with that too. So.
Yeah, I should go update my I call it my Rosetta Stone tab. In where I pull in all of the information. That one slipped through. Yeah, all right.
That's what I was doing frantically before we signed on, was making sure I had all these team changes accounted for. Because when I pull it down into my spreadsheet, it's still last year's data from the site I get it from. So
Right.
yeah, it's fun.
No, I do the same
Fun
thing as well.
stuff, you guys.
Jeez
The things we
Louise.
go
All
through
right.
to find these picks.
Oh, goodness gracious. This is what you do. You do. Remember, we're doing all this the night before. We don't have anything to lean on other than our own wits. So you're getting the good stuff. I promise you. We'll work the kinks out here and there. That's just the minor one. Okay. But back to that. So we'll talk about Dario Agrisol. He has the number one home run rate against righties on the season, just 158 plate appearance sample. But
which is, if you don't listen to the show, the rest of the show from here is not something you want to target as a pitcher, but you do want to target with your bats, just to make that perfectly clear.
Absolutely. All right, heading on to the next game, Baltimore and Miami. Again, we're not entirely sure what's going to happen. I haven't seen any updates. I would suspect this one doesn't play. I don't know if do you know if the Marlins have traveled back? They spent the night in Philadelphia on Sunday night. Pardon me, and they weren't going to travel Monday, at least as of Monday afternoon. Did you see any updates on that?
That was the last update that I saw, that they were still waiting for some Phillies results coming back, and I think a few more Marlins got tested again. So I think it's very much up in the air. I agree with you. I don't think this one's going to happen.
Yeah. So we're just going to yeah, we'll bypass this one. It's Asher Wojciechowski and Pablo Lopez. Look towards the hitters. But who's healthy? We don't know yet. And is this one going to go or not? We're not sure. So we've got plenty of others to talk about. Hey, including our next one, Dario Agrisol. Hey, someone told me he pitches for the Tigers. Let's hear what that someone has to say about him.
Well, let's see. He's kind of a forgettable career on the team that we were just talking about before that he used to be on. He had 73 innings pitched last year with a 5.90 FIP and 41 strikeouts. So I mean, you're coming in around a half a strikeout an inning. Ugly numbers in the FIP side of things. Not a great track record through the minors. So certainly not a pitcher I'm going to be targeting to have on the arm side of things. The Royals are a team that I liked coming into today. I thought they had a great matchup today, and I kind of like them again tomorrow. I think you get a lot of right-handed power with Jorge Soler. So I think there's a lot to like in this lineup. Witt and Adalberto at the top are guys who can get on base against basically anybody, make things happen with their legs, score some runs for you. You've got Hunter Dozier in there. He's got a decent amount of power, right under a 200 ISO projection, but still, pretty high quality. The back end of the lineup tails off a little bit, but I think we can make some high in the lineup Royal stacks tomorrow and probably have a decent play there.
Yeah, and that's something I think is going to be worthwhile. The Royals, you're going to want to pick your spots. They do have some power. They're lacking some on-base guys, and their lineup falls off the shelf. So we're seeing Alex Gordon. He's so far this season he's batted, I believe he's hit cleanup in 5th in the games he's at, but they may, depending on what they're doing with Ryan O'Hearn, Whit Merrifield will usually be at the top. Adalberto Mondesi, a lot of times he'll be second, but sometimes they shake things up and where they're positioning Jorge Soler. Sal Perez, we know, is going to be behind the plate or DHing a ton. They've got Maikel Franco in there now, who's trying to resurrect his career after disappointing the last few seasons in Philadelphia. Franchi Cordero, another reclamation project here, is going to make an appearance now and then at the bottom, and then whatever outfielder or other mid-infielder they're rolling the dice with for that particular day. So they're going to patchwork their stuff. This is a club that usually, traditionally, even regardless of who the manager is, has gone more with that platoon split feel, Terry, and a lot of times they like to go every other hitter, as opposed to just the old manager style. If I have every other hitter righty or lefty, they're going to have a tougher time choosing who comes out of the bullpen. And we know now that should not play into your decision, but it's well down the punch list of things that you look at when you're trying to choose your reliever. And so who knows? But we do have the 3-hitter rule now for relievers. So, but in any event, I'm sidetracking myself. Just saying, whatever lineup we're going to see from Kansas City, they're going to shake it up every day. It's going to be the same core 5 guys, but their batting order is going to be plus or minus 2 or 3 spots, depending on what's going on, who the other guys are that are coming into the lineup for defensive or platoon purposes on offense. So
definitely.
Kind of a mess.
And it's something we have to keep an eye on as DFS players, right? Because we want those tightly correlated guys. We want guys hitting close together in batting order, so that you do get that rising tide when a guy gets on base and then the next guy hits a home run. You want both those guys. because they both scored a decent amount of points. So it's pretty easy to figure out which guys are going to help each other. It's unlikely for, let's say, a 2-hitter and a 7-hitter to correlate that strongly together. They can, depending on what happens in a wacky inning, but it's not something we're necessarily shooting for. So you got to be paying attention to the batting order when you're building your lineups.
All right, and then we don't know yet who's going for the Royals. The Tigers are kind of a whole lot of If it's a lefty, then CJ Crone is comes up the list quite a bit. If it's a righty, he's still in play. You're going to count on him running into one pitch and taking it out of the park because he's going to whiff the rest of the time. But he is still in play. But he's much better with the platoon splits. But yeah, the rest of their guys are lacking consistency. Is a nice way
to put
it
it nicely.
Yeah, I mean, Heimer Candelario, Christian Stewart, Jonathan Scope, Miggy Cabrera, Nico Goodrum, Cam Maben. Those guys they're all legit major league players, but they're all like the equivalent of fourth outfielders, backup infielders, or backup catchers.
Right.
Sorry to say that.
Yeah, but that's a list of has-beens, and some of those has-beens were has-been. I mean, Miggy Cabrera was one of the best players of his generation. There's no arguing it, right? But a lot of those other guys are what we used to call quad A type players.
Right.
The guys who they're in the majors, they can play in a major league game, but they're not somebody you necessarily want on your roster. So yeah, Crone is really the guy out of that lineup that if I need a one-off and it's somebody who's probably not going to get stuck in a lot of lineups because it's not a lefty, maybe I plug him in and try and pick off a cheap home run. I put Glenn Sparkman in just to have somebody come up for the Royals so that I could see the Tigers lineup. He pitched an inning out of the pen yesterday, but he's a guy we've seen start before. So maybe, a couple innings, maybe they use an opener or something like that. So that's who I have in there right now. But regardless of who they throw, this is not a lineup I'm really looking to get to.
All right. Moving along. Let's see. Our next one, I think we know that for Boston, for sure, it's going to be Matt Hall. This is coming in from the MLB probable pitcher stab. It says Hall is going to get the first chance to be Boston's number 5 starter. He's never started a game in the majors. However, he did make 85 starts in the minors, 13 last year. So will he go a full 5? I'm not expecting that from most pitchers the first time they're up in the majors. Does he get us 3 or 4? Okay, maybe. And you know what? There's a lot of pitchers that we're going to say that about today. Does he get us 3 or 4? Maybe. All right. It's going to depend who the Mets put out there. The Mets have gotten better. They do have a little more power, and they actually have guys from the right side of the plate that can do some damage. But we shall see. Anything stand out for you with Hall or the potential? You have the potential starter for them.
Actually, no, I'm using a placeholder for the Mets. I just left it with Rick Porcello for right now. I could not figure out for the life of me. I pulled them up. I looked.
David
they had
Peterson is what I'm seeing on 2 of the 5 sites I've looked at.
Sorry, you're right. I did see that, and I had to pivot.
It's not confirmed.
Yeah. So I just had nothing to work with on that guy. So if it's David Peterson, don't really know much about him. It's certainly not going to be Rick Porcello again, but that's who I left in here. Against any of these guys that the Mets are going to throw up there, if they're not a name on that Mets staff that you're probably going to be okay targeting Red Sox bats, at least the big Red Sox bats here. So that's not a spot I'm really going to be too concerned with. I think on the other side, there might be a little bit of something in this Matt Hall kid. Like you were saying, I don't know for sure that we see 5 innings out of him. We've never seen him start before. But just taking a very quick peek at his minor league stats, he had a couple decent years in the Detroit system. He was putting up about a strikeout per inning pitch, and he came down with they don't have minor league FIP on there, but he came down with mid-2s ERA for 3 straight seasons. So this is a kid who, judging very, very limited information just by that, he wasn't a prospect I really know. We might see a little something out of him, and like you said, as an SP2 tomorrow on this slate, a little something might be all we need. That could be enough. So he's a guy I'm going to eyeball a little bit more tomorrow and find out what he's all about.
Yeah, this is not the right guy.
Was I just talking about the wrong guy?
No. There might be 2 Matt Halls. I'm looking at one that hasn't pitched since 2011. Not that Matt Hall's an uncommon name. They wouldn't have said that.
Hoping it's not that guy.
It's not this guy because he's made way more than 85. Okay, that's not.
Okay. So hopefully everything I said holds up. Like you said, though, there are a lot of bats on this Mets team I like. I was all over the Mets. I'm very heavy Mets today. Love Pete Alonso coming in. He was my home run call. Check out my home run picks overnight column, by the way. I'm now 4 for 5 on making those picks every night. So get in there, check that out. But I love Jonas Cespedes. Should be back in the lineup tomorrow, right-handed bat. Still a ton of power there. He gets weird injuries in the offseason. I mentioned last night, I think he was gored by a wild boar recently, but he's recovered from that. He's hitting home runs. He's back in this lineup. I like J.D. Davis as a guy that fantasy owners don't really get to a ton. He's got a little bit of pop in his bat, and he hits near the middle of this lineup for super cheap. So low-owned guy in a productive lineup is a guy I can definitely see getting into some of my stacks tomorrow.
I'm half wondering here if Major League Baseball is talking about the wrong Matt Hall. It is. We are talking about the there is some Matt Hall. He's for the Red Sox. He's 27, but he's only pitched 2 seasons. I'm reading this right. No, there we go. In the minors, he has pitched. Okay, maybe it is the same guy. He's bounced around in low A for most of his career, so that those numbers are harder to get.
Okay. I hadn't actually seen his age. Yeah, there he is.
Okay. So the other guy I was looking at had pitched from 2005 to 2011. It's like Carlos Martinez. If you go to FanGraphs, there's 3 Carlos Martinez. There's 2 Charlie Mortons.
Those are always so fun to sort through. I can't tell you how many times there's another good one that's one of the Montgomerys, I think. One of the pitching Montgomerys out there. Every time he comes up, I click the wrong one, and it drives me bananas in FanGraphs. So it's always fun.
There we go. All right. Crisis averted there. Continuing along here. Hey, speaking of which, Carlos Martinez is up. How fortuitous. He will be going against Homer Bailey, who is now with the Twins. You've got Carlos Martinez was a good, flashed a lot of talent as a starter. Got hurt again, then got hurt some more. Tried his hand as a reliever, didn't really go so well. They're putting him back in as a starter. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Very fine number 3 rotation guy when healthy. Never really was able to harness all of his talent, but not a bad pitcher. On the other side, Homer Bailey. Yeah, we know what we're getting. They're 8,800 and 9,000 respectively on DraftKings. I'm not as excited about that, but remember, we've talked about a couple extremely cheap guys, and we've also talked about some cheap hitters. What that's going to do is sort of make pricing irrelevant when we're looking at the entire player pool together, and when you bring in popularity or ownership of what the field is doing, that should really be helping drive your decisions in baseball. So yeah, are these guys too expensive? You betcha. What's that going to do? Lower their ownership. And we already know baseball, anything can happen. So this is way different than basketball when you're hearing, oh, they're too expensive, or they're too this, or they're too that. This is not happening. I mean, if make sure I'm on DraftKings. So on DraftKings, even if I'm looking over here, just the adjacent team, you get Carson Kelly, Jake Lamb in a lefty-righty matchup. Those guys are 3,200, 2,600. You get some cheapies here. So pricing is kind of irrelevant. It's very loose on this one. It'll change once we get, Coors Field and other stuff in here. But what we're looking at today, don't let that fully dissuade you from saying, yeah, they're too expensive. Yes, they are. But that doesn't mean they're unplayable. All right. Rant.
For sure.
Old guy shouting at the rain done for now. Terry, would you like to give some actual analysis for Carmart or Homer Bailey?
Honestly, you know what? I think you're pretty on point there. We don't necessarily have to always be sweating salary like that, especially with starting pitching. You can create opportunities by the lineups that you're using. So, yeah, you can't get them in with every single Yankee and every single Red Sox bat together on a slate where they're all there. But you can put together, probably some of those Royals we were talking about, there some of the Mets, I'm sure, and get Carlos Martinez in there at that price. I like his price a lot better on FanDuel. He's only 7,100 over there. So if we're price concerned, that's definitely more appealing as a spot. But I think there's going to be plenty of salary on the table tomorrow. I think we're going to be able to stick in whatever pitching we want. So he's a guy I like. We'll see what he is in this next time back into the rotation. Like you mentioned, a little bit bumpy coming out of the pen. But some guys just, they call it, back in the old days, they called it a starter's mentality, right? Some guys are just better off in that role where they don't necessarily have to go all out every pitch. They can conserve some of it, and they can mix and match what pitches they're throwing. Whereas out of the bullpen, you want to limit your repertoire, and you're going to be coming over the top and throwing really, really hard as much as you can. So maybe Martinez gets back to who he once was. Steamer doesn't love him for the season. They've got a mid-4s FIP on him, but he's a guy that at least has built up some trust for me over the years. So I think I'm going to roll with some lineups with him, particularly on FanDuel, where he's super affordable. He lets you put together basically whatever bats you want with a pitcher that we trust. Homer Bailey is not a pitcher that I trust. I think he's got a pretty appropriate first name. I don't have the stat that you had before, but I'm sure he's fairly high up on that list, I would guess. Right?
He's allowed, over his last 600 lefty-righty matchups, he has allowed a 1.6 home runs per 9. Against righties, it is 1.32 over his last 600. So about an even split, righties versus lefties. But yeah, he allows home runs to both sides of the plate. Decent. His whip is not great. That's walks plus hits divided by innings pitched. That means base runners. So if you're giving up home runs and you allow a lot of base runners, that's no bueno for the ERA. So that is why we like Homer Bailey targeting against him. This is a solid team with the Red Sox. They do not, or probably the Redbirds. They do not have that many easy outs. And even the guys at the back of the lineup, Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader, whoever the fourth outfielder de jure is, those guys all have raw power. O'Neill, I already said, I'm forgetting the third one, but they all have enough power that if they're going to make contact, even if it's a righty, they're going to take the ball out. And that means there's no free pass with no pitcher anymore in these lineups. So when you've got Colton Wong, Goldie, DeYoung, Carpenter, Molina, etc., someone's going to be on base. If one of these guys connects, it's going to be crooked numbers, and it's going to be a problem for the opposing.
For sure. And like you said, he's got, he's always had problems with putting guys on base, high whip kind of a guy. So with a quality veteran lineup like this, I hate to talk in generalities like that, but like you said, these are guys that are not easy outs. These are guys who are going to be getting on base. And there's a lot of power in the middle of this lineup as well. O'Neill hits down toward the back of the lineup. He's a true 3 outcomes kind of guy. He's going to either strike out, get on base, or hit a home run. But we've got, Carpenter, DeYoung, and Goldschmidt all well over 200 ISO projections. So guys that can drive the ball and with on-base skills. It's definitely a team I like to look at against a pitcher like this.
And let's continue moving along here. With regards to taking Mets against Carlos Martinez, not that excited about it. Martinez, now granted, some of this was out of the pen and it's limited. Over the last 2 seasons, he's gone against 333 righties and 388 lefties. So about kind of equal. He has allowed less than half a home run per 9 in this time frame. And he's got about a 50, upper 40s, like 48, 49, 50% ground ball rate on his splits. So that's does not extend innings. The double play is his friend, and if the ball's not going out of the yard, you can make a mistake. Somebody gets on base, and you get a leadoff double, and then they never go any farther because this guy's just nothing but a ground ball pitcher at this point. So just keep that in mind, because the Twins, damn good, set the major league record last year for most home runs.
For sure.
So don't lose sight of that. I just don't like him in this one, even with the 5.6 implied run total that they're going to carry. So again,
which I think
we're into game theory. This seems like a weird total.
Yeah, I feel like that's skewed a little high, and we might see it come down. But like you said, he's a guy that he has rally killing stuff. He might let a couple guys get on base, but he's able to generate that key ground ball when he needs it. He's able to turn that double play. So they're a lineup. The Twins, they're a lineup with a ton of power, as we know. There's guys I'll probably have some limited Twin stacks, and I'll probably play it more as a play against a bigger share of Carlos Martinez, I think, just maybe to offlay some of that risk. So you get a Nelson Cruz in there, you get a Jorge Polanco, Miguel Sano. There's a ton of bats. We all know who they are. So I'll play a little bit of them, but it's not a focus play for me anymore at all, like you said.
All right, on to our next one. Again, these guys are just going to be some spendy pitchers, but there's some of the better ones on the slate. That's the way DraftKings is going with the dynamic pricing. We have Merrill Kelly at $10,000 even. He is a 5-figure player today. I don't think he should be, but that's where we are. We all play with the same one. He's going against Kyle Gibson and the Texas Rangers. A reminder, the new Texas stadium has a roof. So this is not the hot, it's 100 degrees in Texas, it's 115 on the field. We're finding some home runs kind of weather that we're used to. And they actually have had the stadium closed, if not for all of the games, for most of them, or the roof closed anyway. So keep an eye out for that. But just know that this is not the Arlington ballpark that we are used to. On the other side, Kyle Gibson, absolutely a reasonable hitter or pitcher. 9,700. Yeah, that's expensive, but he actually does a good job. He's someone that Adam has liked for a long time and has always been disappointed, Lofty as well, in his pitch mix. Because, and they'll talk about it on the deep dive tomorrow in the strategy show, but it's something that they always get frustrated by, because if he were to throw certain pitches more, he would just be that much better and more effective. It never seems to be the case. He's now with Texas. Maybe those pitching coaches will have different ideas than they had the last few years in Minnesota. But I'm not really a fan of hitters on either side here. These are expensive pitchers, but I bet they're probably going to be about 10% owned, even on the two pitcher sites, because they're so darn spendy.
Yeah, for sure. I think those prices are going to keep people off of them a little bit. And I think Gibson especially has maybe an unearned reputation for being a disappointment, especially in the DFS world. I feel like he's a guy that a lot of people just don't like to roster because he's burned them once or twice before. Like you said, he's a guy similarly to our other analysts. He's a guy I've kind of been waiting on in fantasy. I've had him in a couple season-long leagues, dynasty stuff over the years. Just never really seemed to have gotten over the hump. But he's a guy who has at least earned some trust from me on. And on this slate, again, that's really all we can hope for. On the FanDuel side, it's 8,200 for Gibby and a reasonable 78 for Merrill Kelly. So you're doing somewhat reasonable pricing on that side of things. Kelly, not a guy I love, to be honest. He's been serviceable, but 4.51 FIP last year, 30-year-old rookie. Usually when I see something like that, I feel like there's a reason that a guy is a 30-year-old rookie. So he's going to have to earn a little bit more trust from me. Steamer's got him right around a 5.0 FIP, 3.0 walks per nine projection. Not the biggest strikeout guy in the world. So on the pitching side of things, I don't love him, but I might get some of them in there just to, for differentiation purposes. That does not mean that I'm necessarily going to be targeting these bats. Joey Gallo pulls a great power projection pretty much every day for me. He was one of my home run calls the other day. He looks great again tomorrow. There are some bats in this lineup, but it's really not a target spot for me. If I had to, I would probably get, maybe a little bit of Todd Frazier in there if I had to. He's got a decent home run mark. Willie Calhoun is a bat that I do really like, but he hits kind of late in this batting order. He's tough to put together with the other guys. So if you can get a little, maybe if you need a weird, cheap one-off, you stick a Willie Calhoun in there. He's a guy who can get into one, solid, coming up on a 200 ISO projection, does not strike out, puts a lot of balls in play. Going to be a guy I expect to compete for a batting title in the future. So definitely somebody to keep in mind as a cheap and expensive, maybe part of this stack if you go that way, but certainly a very cheap one-off.
All right, 4 more to go. I do want to mention that SuperDraft now has their contest posted. They are actually going with the 7:30 main slate. They are going with the final 7 games, so that'll give you time to you can play all the sites pretty comfortably, I think, on Tuesday with the FanDuel at 6:40, DraftKings at 7:05, and then SuperDraft at 7:30. If you have not yet made your deposit over there at SuperDraft, you can already have an account. If you make your first deposit, use the promo code Awesemo10. That's Awesemo10. If you put in $10, they will match it with $10 in Super Cash. If you put in $100, they will give you $20 in Super Cash. Super Cash is the site currency that comes first out of your account. It is available for immediate use into any contest. You just can't withdraw it, but it gives you some money to play with and helps you learn their style. They do not have salary caps. You can literally pick any player you want. Oh, if I just had more, I could have picked this guy. You can over there on SuperDraft. Why? Because they have multipliers. So they take the normal fantasy scoring, and then each player has a multiplier. So someone like Max Scherzer is going to have a multiplier of 1. Someone like Ross Stripling will have a multiplier of 2. That makes it very easy for Stripling to have a decent game and outscore Max Scherzer on anything but a 12 strikeout game. So there's a lot of different looks here. We have projections for them at Awesemo. They have late swap, and they are optimizer friendly. You can upload CSV files. So definitely check that out. All right, Terry, we've got the Dodgers. We've got the Astros. Walker Buehler, 11,800 against the Astros. Wow, that's expensive. He's probably the best pitcher on the slate. Going against one of the best teams, Buehler is looking at a 4.1 implied run total from Houston. Wow, that's the lowest we've seen thus far. Now, Houston's played the Mariners for 4 games, but that's the lowest we've seen from Houston by almost 2 runs. Framber Valdez on the other side. I don't really want to tangle with the Dodgers, but how are you feeling about Walker Buehler against the Houston Asterix?
In a world where Merrill Kelly is 10,000, is 11 whatever expensive for Walker Buehler, that's a significant step up in quality. This is the pitcher I want to own on this slate, up and down, regardless of what my projections are currently telling me. He is the quality of this slate. It's a tough matchup, but Vegas knows what they're talking about for the most part. Keeping that run total down that low tells me there's a lot to like here. So it's one I'm definitely going to dig into, get into some of the specifics. Some of those Astros hitters in the middle of the lineup don't strike out that often. So there's a little bit of concern there. He's not my top projected starter, which it does concern me a little bit on name brand. He's a guy that I do want to jam in, like I just said, and I will, but I want to look into why he's not coming up as my top projected guy despite the matchup. Is it only because of that? Is it because of these limited Ks? But you're seeing, I'm seeing Alex Bregman, Michael Brantley, Yuli Gurriel, and Josh Reddick all pulling down mid-teens level K rates in Steamer's projection. So these are guys that know how to limit the strikeout, know how to work their way on base, and then there's a ton of power in that lineup too. So it's going to be a dance through some danger for him, but I think he's got the quality to do it. He's a guy that I absolutely love as a pitcher. Last year he was over 10 strikeouts per 9. He was under 2 walks per 9. Gave up under a home run per 9. He's just a guy that you'll love. The K rate is strong, so I see no real reason to fear going to Buehler. Yeah, 29.2% strikeout rate last year, so no real reason to go away from him. Price, regardless of price, he's a guy I want to get in my lineups.
Do you believe in payback? we have the Dodgers who lost to the Houston Cheaters, to the garbage can team in the World Series in 2017. Just throwing it out there. Now, do I think they're going to have Walker Buehler put one in somebody's ribs? Maybe not, but
talk about a game where you need an opener.
Exactly. There we go. On the other side, Framber Valdez, as we mentioned, he had debuted okay in 2018. Was really cheap. Got some favorable matchups last year. He kind of split time as a starter and in the bullpen. Not a lot to write home about. Not against the Dodgers. We can go elsewhere. Colorado, nothing overly exciting here. You have Antonio Senzatella, who any Coors Field pitcher that's not in Coors Field gets a little bit bump of what we normally think of them. However, he's going against a very power-laden A's team. On the other side there, you have Daniel Mengden, who does a decent job of limiting runs. Doesn't usually implode, but not really a strikeout guy. Not really that exciting. Anything you want to mention on this one, or is this kind of a meh game?
I think you just touched on it there at the end with a guy like Mengden who's not going to be striking out many people, even against this A's team. I'm sorry, thinking about that the wrong way around. Even against this Rockies team, I think that's a guy that you can target with these bats. These are not guys that are going to get themselves out very often. You've got Arenado, Blackman in the middle of that lineup, don't strike out very often. So you put those two things together, these are guys going to be making a lot of contact, driving the ball, getting on base, and probably coming around to a fair degree. On the other side, I love the A's bat. So this is an offense game for me. I'm all over the A's all year long, and against a guy like Senzatella, I think he was almost at a 7 ERA last year in what we saw from him. 6.71. Yep. Yeah, so I mean that's a guy that you want to target just based on just the very surface level numbers. He's not a strong pitcher. He's again another guy who doesn't strike out many people. So what I was about to say for the other side does actually hold up against this A's lineup, even though there are a lot of guys who strike out a lot. He's not a guy who's going to put that together, I don't think. So I expect a lot of fireworks in this game. I want a lot of both of these offenses.
All right, next game going to be kind of fun. You got the Mariners, you got the Angels. Justice Sheffield going against Patrick Sandoval. A couple of young lefties here. Justice Sheffield, part of the James Paxton trade, made a few starts for the Mariners last year. Wasn't bad. I don't think he got a decision. The Mariners fell apart at the end of last season, so I'm a Mariners fan, so I vaguely remember I was not overly impressed. I picked against him a lot, and he didn't really get blown up as much as I would have thought he would. So, hey, there is a little talent there. Sandoval, we've seen a little bit as well. I think this will be his second appearance here. Let me see. So Patrick Sandoval last year, this is why I remember him. 41 lefties faced, 3 home runs per 9. Yikes. It's such a small sample size that's really not fair. Against righties, he saw 127 righties. He allowed 0.9 home runs per 9. Again, we're looking at, let's see, not even quite, just shy of 200 total batters. So the rates are going to be skewed there. He's someone I'm willing to go with against the Mariners. We saw the Mariners, they had a few moments here and there against the Astros, but we're talking about Shed Long. Kyle Lewis, the rookie, has been batting cleanup. Potentially it's going to be Kyle Seager, who's 32, 33. Evan White got a home run on Monday, but he's nothing exciting. Austin Nola, Aaron's older brother, debuted as a 28-year-old rookie last year for the Mariners. Has catcher eligibility. You may need that. Seriously, he plays catcher, outfield, and first base. He's the true utility guy. And then just a mess of guys. Shed Long, Malik Smith. Not a lot of power in this lineup. Vogelbach isn't. I wonder if something happened to him. He hasn't been listed in the projected lineup here. He didn't play Monday and is not listed on Tuesday's lineup. Let me see what's up with him, because he's one of my favorite guys, even though he's home run or bust. What do you want to do here with the Mariners? I'm thinking we look towards the Angel pitching.
Yeah, I think that's the case here as well. The Mariners are they're a team I'm going to be targeting with pitchers, I think, a lot this year. You touched on a couple guys in the lineup, a lot of them left-handed. So going up against a lefty, not necessarily the best lineup for that. So we'll see, what they rotate in to handle the lefty-righty matchup. Kyle Lewis is a guy I really like as a prospect if he's able to stay healthy and be on the field. The bat is still there. The bat speed, by all accounts, is still there. The kid can still drive the ball. The question is going to be with him going forward, whether he's going to be able to stay healthy. Hitting in the middle of that lineup, if you feel frisky and want to roll some Mariners out there, he's a guy I would include. But I would definitely be targeting Patrick Sandoval as a pitcher here. Decent strikeout numbers. Not the greatest pitcher in the world, but somebody that could certainly put up a good enough score for you, particularly as an SP2 on DraftKings. Guy that you can go to there. And then on the other side, you mentioned Sheffield. He's a high-end prospect, kid that a lot of people like coming up and expect a lot from. Probably not there yet, So I think maybe some of these Angels right-handed bats would be a pretty smart play tomorrow, at least in some limited capacity. We all know about Mike Trout, but we've also got the old man Albert Pujols there. Albert could still turn on one here against a kid who, probably going to be a little bit intimidated if he even knows who Albert Pujols is. I don't know how old is Justice Sheffield at this point.
Well, I know Albert Pujols is 40. Sheffield's 24. So
okay, so he probably still knows who he is. Watch him growing up and everything. So you see a matchup like that, maybe it's one that we can take advantage of. It's not a spot I'm going to get to in a ton of lineups, but I'll probably roll some Angels out there against the kid. I might have a couple Sheffield lineups. He's carrying a price point kind of in the middle of some of those other ones that we nailed before that we liked a little bit better. And if I'm looking at my projections here, he is my third highest projected starter, which is weird. So I'm going to have to dig into Sheffield a little bit. I'm not entirely sure why that's coming up that way, but my starting pitching projections are usually on point. So I'm going to see what that's all about. Maybe I need to change a run total or something. But very limited deployment if we go that route.
Here's our Dan Vogelbach news, which is good because now I'm not going to be picking him in the home run contest because I picked him more than everybody else combined last year. It says Vogelbach is sidelined for the second straight day on Monday in order to work on his swing. Apparently, coaches noticed something on video and are trying to implement changes. This is courtesy of Roto World. Vogelbach has struggled miserably dating back to the All-Star break last year. I can attest to this. Wait for it. This is who replaced him as the DH. Jose Marmoleos. I believe I'm saying that correctly. Marmoleos. I think I know that name because I think was somehow in the Nationals farm system somewhere, but I don't think I ever made it up. So, yikes. We may have seen the last of Dan Vogelbach.
Ouch. Yeah. When you get that, Dan, we've noticed something about your swing, and that's that you're not hitting the ball. That's not a good sign. And having Marmoleos, whoever he might be, replace you in the lineup is also not good.
Yeah, tread lightly there. He says 8 career at-bats. They've come in the last 2 days.
Oh, jeez.
So, sorry, Vogelbach. You were a folk hero. The brightest stars burn out the quickest. All right. Oh goodness, we have one game to go here. Zach Davies for the Pod Squad going against, we believe, Jeff Samardzija. They did insert a opener in front of Jeff Samardzija. However, he usually pitches dramatically better at home. This should come as no surprise. What are we calling it these days? AT&T Park? Petco? What is the San Francisco Park? Now I'm gonna have to know that. Pac Bell was what it was when I went to a game there, and I watched Sosa and Bonds play, so it was a while ago. But yeah, it's definitely a pitcher's park for sure. But remember, we do have the DH now. San Diego actually has some power hitters. I know Trent Grisham is not exciting. This lines up to be a very good matchup for him, and he's 3,500 against Samardzija here, so definitely keep him on your short list for cheapies on DraftKings. And then we've got Machado, Pham, Fernando Tatis. Not always it's going to be 60 degrees or 59 at first pitch. Little chilly there, but going for some one-offs or a pair even on the main slate against Samardzija, nothing wrong with that. Do you like Davies in this spot going against basically a AAA lineup?
So now that I'm finding out that it is Davies, because when we started this show, there was no pitcher in that spot. Let's see. Let me put him in here in 1 second and see how it comes up. He's not a guy that I expect to like once this pops up here, but we'll find out. There's not a ton of quality.
Oracle Park.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I knew it was some Silicon Valley kind of a name. I gave up after, and it's an NBA name, but I gave up after I found out something was called the Smoothie King Center. That was enough with the naming rights for me to stop paying attention. So I rarely know.
Who was the Smoothie King Arena? Smoothie King Arena. Right?
I think that's the New Orleans Pelicans, I believe.
You are correct. The Smoothie King Center.
Smoothie King Center. Yeah. So yeah, once we got to that one, I'd never heard of Smoothie King before. I just said, all right, we don't have to care about what these places are named anymore. We just care about the park factor. So Giants, well, I can't call it Giant Stadium. Shit. The place that we're talking about plays as a pitcher's park for sure. That said, I don't know that it really helps a guy like Zach Davies. He's not somebody we really care about. Pulling a mid-5 fit projection and FIP from Steamer, over a 3 walk per 9, under a 6 strikeout per 9. Not a guy I'm going to be targeting for an arm. Maybe it leads me to pick up a couple of these Giants bats just on a whim. An Alex Dickerson kind of a 1 through 4 stack with Mike Yastrzemski, and Wilmer Flores there, just to be weird and different. It's a team that I'll take a look at where they come up in the stack ranks. And if they're a few spots up the list and nobody else is going to be on them, I might jam them into a spot or two. Nothing to get carried away with. I think the Padres definitely, like you were saying, lots to like about that lineup. The Shark has been an up and down guy. It's weird. I was looking through his numbers in a lot of years. He's always one or the other. He's got a FIP differential that's favorable or a FIP differential that hides that he wasn't as good as we thought he was. So it goes back and forth. Last year, FIP told us that he was worse than he seemed. So a guy that we, probably don't want to trust in this spot. That said, he's another guy that I'm getting, and these are all pretty low projections, but he does appear pretty high up my projection list here. So another guy I'm going to take a closer look at, see if it makes any sense to stick him in. Right now, I'm not thinking that I'm going to, especially not at 8,100 on FanDuel. There's other options I like at that price.
All right, that sounds good. Want to be a little bit longer than we normally do, but that's okay. A lot of moving parts, a lot of sub-slates. We're going to get a lot of that with one day off each of the next 6 weeks, probably each of the next 10 weeks for these teams. So we're going to see some very crowded slates, and there'll be a lot to talk about, especially with the uncertainty as we're seeing with pitchers. And when we try to record this relatively early to get it up on time, we won't have all of the pitchers, but here we are. We've got you guys all the way home. Where can we find you on social media, Terry?
I am at DigitalB21 on Twitter because I like to make it as difficult as possible to follow who I am, change up the names as much as possible from site to site. But TMcB74 on your daily fantasy sites, DigitalB21 on Twitter.
All right, and you can find me at EMac DFS, and of course it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.